Today, we'll be explaining every former and current Hashira in the Demon Slayer Corps. Let's get started. Number 12. Kanae Kocho. Kanae was the former flower pillar of the Demon Slayer Corps, as well as the sister of the former insect pillar. She was slain several years prior to the present story. The Kocho sisters lived a peaceful, privileged life with their wealthy and loving parents, who continuously doted on and cared for them. However, this all came crashing down when a demon attacked their home. Their parents tried to protect the two and were slaughtered before their daughter's eyes. They would have been next, but they were saved by the timely arrival of Gyome Himejima, who killed the demon immediately before it could kill either one of them. After these traumatic events, the two sisters made a promise to both join the Demon Slayer Corps to stop the demons from inflicting the same horror and pain they experienced on others. Both of them soon became successful demon slayers after completing their training and developing their own breathing styles. During her time as a demon slayer, Kanae was a flower-breathing user that was skilled enough to hold the position of the flower Hashira, a position only reserved for demon slayers who have slain one of 12 Kizuki or have successfully battled and slain at least 20 demons. One day, while traveling through a village, Kanae took notice of a little girl being dragged along by a leash by a man. Even though the girl was nameless, dirty, and didn't speak, Kanae approached her and attempted to convince the man who purchased her to let her go. When he demanded money in compensation, Shinobu flung money in the air, grabbed the rope he released, and ran off with the girl. They then took her to the butterfly mansion, adopted her, and named her Kaneo. When the girl proved unresponsive without orders, Kanae gave her a coin to flip to help her make decisions until she could make decisions on her own. Some years later, Kanae ran into the upper rank 2 of the 12 Kizuki, Doma. She was fatally wounded during the encounter, but he was forced to flee from the rising sun before he could devour her. As she lay dying in Shinobu's arms, she tries to convince her sister to leave the Demon Slayer Corps to live a normal life, but her sister is dead set on avenging her. With the last of her strength, Kanae described Doma to Shinobu before succumbing to her wounds. Number 11. Shinobu Kocho. Shinobu is a demon slayer of the Demon Slayer Corps, and the current insect Hashira. Despite not possessing the physical strength to cut off a demon's head common to that of an average demon slayer, Shinobu uses her creativity, ingenuity, and other physical abilities to make up for it. Instead of the traditional method of decapitating a demon with a Nichiren blade to kill them, Shinobu opts to use a modified version of a katana that acts as a stinger to inject lethal wisteria poison that is poisonous to demons. Shinobu is present when Kagaya Ubuyashiki receives news of the situation unfolding at Naragumo Mountain, and is given the order to travel there and assist the lower-rank swordsman. Much later, Shinobu appears before a heavily injured Zenitsu, greeting and asking him if he is alright. She then suddenly appears behind the daughter of Rui's demon family, wishing the creature a good evening and commenting on the beauty of the moon that night. Startled, the demon attacks the demon slayer with her strings, but Shinobu dodges them all effortlessly. After a conversation with the demon, Shinobu tells the elder daughter demon that in order for them to be friends and to satisfy those who have died, she will have to endure punishment, explaining in gruesome detail what she had in mind for this, and adding that the creature won't die from it, so there will be no after effects. Enraged, the demon attacks Shinobu again, but the demon slayer quickly bypasses her, simultaneously landing her insect-breathing attack on the creature. She laments the demon's poor choice, turning and subsequently watching as the creature collapses. She later attempts to attack Tanjiro and Nezuko, but her attack is deflected by Giyu. She questions his interference, noting that if he continues this course of action, everyone would hate him. The insect Hashira asks her fellow demon slayer to get out of the way, apologizing to him when he replies that he isn't hated. She turns her attention to Tanjiro, telling him that he is protecting a demon and that he should get away from her. The young demon slayer explains that Nezuko is his sister, causing Shinobu to pity her and plan to kill her with a toxin that inflicts no pain. A while later, during a final battle inside the Infinity Castle that Muzan had created, Shinobu enters a room and discovers Doma eating a group of his own female disciples. Shinobu angrily inquires if he remembers the Haori that originally belonged to her elder sister. Doma finally remembers her by the butterfly wing design Haori that Kanae once wore, and playfully expresses his disappointment at not being able to eat Kanae due to the sun rising. The insect Hashira swiftly launches an attack at him, using her insect breathing to inflict a powerful stab directly into Doma's right eyeball, which impresses him since he couldn't block it. Shinobu hopes that the poison will be effective enough to kill him, but then learns that Doma had already received information regarding her poison from her battle against the spider family. Now hedging her bets on injecting a large dose to kill him by using a 6-stab attack, Shinobu strikes him using insect breathing and successfully hits him. However, as she attacks him, he simultaneously attacks her, cutting both her collarbone and ribs and puncturing one of her lungs. However, Doma recovers almost instantly from her attack, by which Shinobu is further enraged. Now exhausted, fatally injured, and dangerously near death, she allows herself to be absorbed by the upper rank so she could poison him. Number 10. Jigoro Kuwajima. Jigoro was the instructor of Zenitsu and Kaigaku as the former Thunder Hashira. He's currently an elderly, so his strength was significantly waned due to the passage of time. But as a master of the secret techniques of demon slaying, he still holds a considerable amount of knowledge that he can pass down to the next generation. Kaigaku managed to master all of the thunder-breathing forms except the first form. Meanwhile, Zenitsu had only managed to master the first form and none of the others due to his inexperience. He committed seppuku when his former student Kaigaku defected to gain the powers of a demon. After Zenitsu managed to kill Kaigaku, Zenitsu and Jigoro briefly meet in the afterlife. His student apologized for not being able to get along with Kaigaku. Before Zenitsu is forcefully returned to the land of the living, Jigoro declared that Zenitsu was his pride and joy with tears in his eyes. Number 9. Mitsuri Kenroji. Mitsuri is a demon slayer of the Demon Slayer Corps and the current love Hashira. She is said to have completed the final selection within a mere 6 months of training, which Kyojuro considers outstanding. Mitsuri was born among 5 siblings and displayed an unnatural strength at a very young age through her unique muscle composition, shocking even her mother, who herself was known for her strength. She grew up eating much more than the average person and developed an unnatural hair color, which led her to be seen as a freak and unable to proceed with a previously intended marriage when she was 17. After this rejection, she dyed her hair black, pretended to be weak, and forced herself to eat a normal amount in an attempt to fit in more with other girls, even if it negatively impeded her well-being. Shortly after making these adjustments to her physical appearance, Mitsuri was approached by a potential partner. However, she became doubtful over whether or not pretending to be a different person would truly work out for her in the end. Mitsuri then encountered Kagaya, who told her to reject normalcy and embrace who she was, as her strength was a gift. Because of this encounter, she joined the Demon Slayers and used her skills and ridiculous strength to rise to the status of Hashira. At the Ubuyashiki estate, Mitsuri thinks about the potential killing of Nezuko with uneasiness. The love Hashira's expression of praise quickly turns to horror as Sanemi stabs Nezuko, but just as quickly turns to laughter when Tanjiro headbutts him. In the Swordsmith Village arc, Mitsuri meets with Tanjiro and Nezuko in Swordsmith Village. When the village is attacked by upper rank 4 and 5, Mitsuri quickly returns to the Swordsmith Village from her own district. When Tanjiro was swallowed by one of the tree dragons, Mitsuri slices the creature's head in half, carrying Tanjiro on her back safely. She squeals at the monster's size and questions what it is, then asks Tanjiro if he's alright, and that it's a good thing that she made it in time. After putting Tanjiro down, she tells him to rest and doesn't hear him try to tell her that the demon is upper rank 4. Mitsuri continues to battle against Zohakuten and uses her love-breathing forms to fight it. The demon realizes that she is too fast and is keeping up with his attacks, making him have to use his blood demon art ability. The love Hashira is then fiercely hit by Zohakuten's compressed sound waves and loses consciousness. She is then unconsciously awakened and obtained her Demon Slayer mark. When this manifested, Mitsuri's physical strength, endurance, precision, and power increased dramatically, to the point where she was able to stand equal grounds against upper rank 4, while he was unleashing his most powerful techniques against her. Right as Mitsuri feels as though she's going to die, Tanjiro kills the main body, and Zohakuten crumbles to dust. A while later, during the final battle, Mitsuri and Obanai fight against Nakime. Mitsuri immediately enrages the upper rank and tries to behead her with presumably a love-breathing technique, but Nakime reflects the attack with her blood demon art and warps a wooden door in between the two of them. Fortunately, Mitsuri was able to save herself by slashing open the column, which gave her an opportunity to dodge the crush. Mitsuri wall jumps off the column and tells Nakime that she knows she won't be able to hit her with the same exact attack twice. Later, Mitsuri dies while fighting with the rest of the Demon Slayers against Muzan. Number 8. Muichiro Tokito. Muichiro is a Demon Slayer of the Demon Slayer Corps and the current Miss Hashira. He is noted to be incredibly talented, despite his young age, accomplishing his Hashira status after a mere 2 months of training. Muichiro and his older brother Yuichiro were born to a woodcutter and his wife. When they were 10 years old, their mother caught a cold, which developed into bronchitis, killing her. Their father, who had gone to fetch medicinal herbs for their mother during a storm, ended up falling off a cliff to his death. The 2 orphan siblings survived together, with Muichiro taking after the emotional and kind nature of their father. Contrary to him, Yuichiro held a cold and impassive outlook on life. In the following spring, Kagaya's wife, Amani, arrived to recruit the twins for the Demon Slayer Corps. Muichiro's excitement was opposed by Yuichiro's unwelcoming and rejecting reception. In an outburst, Yuichiro revealed that he blamed the death of their parents on their hardworking and selfless natures, which led to him adopting this cold demeanor, hoping that it would keep himself and his brother alive. While Amani continued to visit the twins, Yuichiro chased her away each time. In the following summer, when the twins were 11, a demon arrived at the cabin during the night and attacked, resulting in Yuichiro losing his left arm while trying to protect Muichiro. As the demon badgered them for their worthlessness, Muichiro lost himself in rage and destroyed the demon with all the tools at their disposal and wooden logs. By sunrise, the demon withered to ash, and Muichiro dragged himself back to the house. There, he found Yuichiro near death, praying to the heavens that his brother might survive. He laid next to his brother and grasped his hand as he passed away. After Tanjiro was brought to the Hashira's meeting for interrogation, Muichiro was present and later introduced as the Miss Hashira. When questioned about how he felt about Nezuko being kept alive, he retorted that he did not mind and would forget about the circumstance anyways. When Tanjiro suddenly interrupts Kaguya in the middle of his meeting with the Hashiras, Michiro flicks him in the head with a pebble and advises him not to interrupt their master. In the Swordsmith Village arc, we see a battle between Michiro and the upper rank 4 Hantengu. Michiro immediately attacks Hantengu using mist breathing and cuts off his head. Tanjiro yells at Michiro to keep focusing as Hantengu splits into 2 bodies, Sekido and Karaku. After being blasted out of the building and into the forest by Karaku, Michiro encounters upper rank 5 Gyoko. He tries to attack him, but gets trapped in his blood demon art water poison pot. After escaping from the water poison, Michiro's memories of his past all come back. The anger over his brother's death manifests into his Demon Slayer mark, his speed and abilities dramatically increasing as he goes into the shed and attacks Gyoko, who comments on his relaxed face. When Gyoko tries to find him in a sea of mist, Michiro effortlessly decapitates him. At the Battle of the Infinity Castle, Michiro is separated from Gyome by upper rank 4 Nakime's blood demon art. As Michiro is getting back up, he sees a petrifying 6-eyed figure. The figure gazes at Michiro and discerns that the Hashira is a familiarity to him. Michiro soon realizes that he is looking at the infamous upper rank 1, Kokushibo, in the flesh. Kokushibo sees the muscles, ribs, and blood flow of Michiro and determines that Michiro is of similar blood to him. Michiro attempts to behead Kokushibo with his mist breathing. The upper rank, however, dodges it elegantly and admires Michiro's swordsmanship skills, along with realizing that his descendant uses the mist breathing. Michiro is not interested in another conversation with his so-called ancestor and unleashes his mist breathing 5th form on the upper rank, which evades the attack again with no difficulty. Kokushibo calls Michiro's name, and that despite his incredibly young age of 14, his swordsmanship skills are this refined and beautiful. Michiro soon dies at the hands of the upper rank 1, since the demon is far stronger than Michiro. Number 7. Obanai Iguro. Obanai is a demon slayer of the Demon Slayer Corps, and the current Serpent Hashira. Obanai is one of the most powerful and skilled swordsmen in the entire organization. Obanai was born into a clan of thieves who lived off an excessive amount of riches that had been stolen from those who had been killed by the demon that they worshipped. This demon took the form of a woman with a snake-like lower body and face, and had a great taste for newborn babies, which is what the family sacrificed in exchange for their riches. As the first boy born into the family for 370 years, Obanai lived out all his days locked in a wooden cage, being spoiled by his family, who insisted on bringing him so many plates of rich food. The serpent demon also took a liking to Obanai, since he was a rare male child with heterochromia, and would spend the night slithering around his cage in the dark, staring at him, which frightened Obanai so much that he couldn't sleep. When he turned 12, Obanai was finally allowed to leave his cell for the first time in his entire life. He was taken to a room that appeared to be an expensive shrine, and put face to face with the serpent demon for the first time, immediately causing him to shake in fear and terror at the demon's appearance and the realization that this was the very same thing slithering in his room, staring at him every night of his life. The demon remarked that Obanai was very small, and wondered to herself if she would wait to eat him until he was a little bigger. Deciding that she should, she organized his mouth to be cut wider, all the way to his ears, to match hers, due to her liking him. Back in his cell, Obanai began only to think of escape and survival upon realizing his fate. He began to scratch away at the lattice of his cell with a stolen hairpin he took from one of his relatives. Day by day, he would be in a constant state of worry and fear and shaking in terror at the possibility of what would happen if the snake demon or his family would discover his attempt at freedom. The only being he could trust was the small snake that somehow strayed into his cage and became his only friend. After a while of doing this, Obanai finally managed to completely remove a wooden chunk of his bars and escape into the night as fast as he could. As he ran, the serpent demon began to pursue him, almost catching up to him and killing him before the flame Hashira by chance came to his rescue. Because of Obanai's escape, the serpent demon had killed all 50 of his relatives, and the only surviving member of his bloodline was his older cousin, who had already been saved by the Hashira. When they were reunited, Obanai's cousin rejected him and began to violently attack and claw at him, due to her blaming him for the family's deaths at the hand of the demon, due to them messing up and allowing him to escape, and screaming at him that he should have just let her eat him. Due to these harsh words from his cousin and his own sense of self-loathing and guilt for having been born into such a family and allowing them to die for his survival, Obanai joined the Demon Slayer Corps and decided to turn all his rage into whatever demons he could find, figuring that he'd feel like a better person if he risked his life for the sake of others and somehow ease his guilt. During the Hashira training, he taught sword skill revision training to the other demon slayers, further showcasing his skill with the sword. When Tanjiro insists Nezuko would never harm humans despite turning into a demon, the snake Hashira tells him not to make such reckless remarks, as the girl would obviously protect her family, and as such, he cannot trust anything the young demon slayer says. After Sanemi purposely injured himself to bait out Nezuko, Obanai reminded his fellow Hashira that he would have to get out of the sunlight in order for her to appear. He then swiftly pinned Tanjiro to the ground to prevent him from interfering. Maintaining his hold despite Shinobu's protests, Obanai rushes to the Ubuyashiki estate with the rest of the Hashiras after hearing the call that Muzan was there. After seeing Muzan, Obanai readies himself to unleash his first form on him, but Muzan transports him and the rest of the Hashira into his infinity castle. Obanai runs into Mitsuri and kills a group of demons with the serpent-breathing 5th form, Slithering Serpent. Later, he and Mitsuri encounter Nakime. After Mitsuri tries to attack and was sent tumbling out of a window, Obanai tries to use the serpent-breathing to decapitate the demon. However, he too is sent out of a window, expressing in a frustrated fashion how much of a pain Nakime's blood demon art is to deal with. After fighting with Nakime for a while, Obanai and Mitsuri are informed of Muzan's revival and receive orders to group up with the other Hashira. As Muzan grows furious over Nakime's failure, the battle between the Demon Slayers and Muzan resumes. During a long battle with Muzan, Obanai gets heavily injured many times. As Muzan grows furious, Obanai considers that he needs to find a more effective way to attack. Thinking back on the report that Michiro had turned his blade red during his final moments, he speculates that by gripping the sword as hard as you can increase the temperature of the blade and thus turn it crimson red. In that moment, his Demon Slayer mark appears, and he grips his sword, turning it bright red. After battling Muzan again, he dies alongside Mitsuri. Number 6. Tengen Uzui. Tengen Uzui is a current sound Hashira. He has displayed incredible physical feats of strength and speed, being one of the physically strongest Hashira in the current generation, as well as being the fastest runner out of all the Hashira. Tengen was born into a family of 9 children within a shinobi clan. 3 of the 9 children died before they even reached 10 years old due to overzealous training. By the age of 15, 7 of his siblings had already died, leaving only him and his younger brother. As children, his father had forced them to undergo harsh and intensive training as an attempt to save the clan. As his last remaining brother adopted this mindset and did not feel bad about killing their other siblings, Tengen became appalled and decided to leave the clan permanently. He left the village with his wives, without fighting his brother. Following the departure from the clan, Tengen and his family searched for Kagaya Ubuyashiki to help fight for the Demon Slayers, and he formally joined. Tengen would later go on to climb the ranks of the Corps and become the Sound Hashira. Tengen was present as a member of the Hashira when Tanjiro Kamado was put on trial. Upon finally meeting Nezuko and Tanjiro, he openly expresses his distaste at the idea of them traveling together, even claiming that he will cut off his head with style. Tengen Uzui is one of the main protagonists in the Entertainment District arc. At the beginning of the arc, Tengen enters Butterfly Mansion and attempts to kidnap Naho and Aoi to assist him in his mission. However, he is forced to change tactics when the 3 boys, Tanjiro, Zenitsu, and Inosuke, rescue the girls and force him to take them along on his mission. On their way to the site, Tengen reveals that they are going to investigate the disappearance of his wives within the Entertainment District. In order to do so, he explains that each boy will be sent to one of the 3 brothels to try to gather information on their whereabouts. Once they arrive at the district, Tengen disguises the boys as girls and drops them off at each house to begin their investigation. They discover that the demon they're looking for is upper rank 6, Daki. Tengen manages to quickly decapitate Daki, unable to believe that she is the upper rank that they have been searching for. Upon discovering the truth behind Daki and Gyotaro's presence, the Hashira engages in fierce combat with the demons. Gyotaro manages to poison Tengen during the fight, preventing him from decapitating the demon. After they finally manage to bring down the demon's siblings, Tengen ends up losing his left hand and eye in the process. By the end of the battle, Gyotaro's poison has spread throughout Tengen's body, resulting in his inability to speak. As he lays dying from the poison, Nezuko intervenes by using her blood demon art to burn the poison out of his system, allowing him to rejoice with his wives. Once Obanai arrives to the scene, he tells him that he is officially retiring from the Demon Slayer Corps because of his massive injuries. Number 5. Hyojuro Rengoku. Hyojuro was the former Flame Hashira. Even demons as strong as Akaza, upper rank 3, acknowledge Kyojuro's strength. He even went as far as to offer to turn Kyojuro into a demon so that he could surpass his human limits and become stronger, something he only offered to swordsmen whose abilities he believed were refined to their utmost. Kyojuro is also one of the main protagonists in the Mugen Train arc. Kyojuro is sent to investigate a series of brutal attacks plaguing a small village, believing it to be related to the incident surrounding the disappearance of 40 passengers aboard the Mugen Train. Once on the train, he meets with Tanjiro, Zenitsu, and Inosuke. The conductor then comes over to the 4 of them to stamp their tickets. Tanjiro smells something unusual, and Kyojuro appears to sense it too, as he asks the conductor to step aside, simultaneously prepping his sword. A large-bodied demon appears at the other end of the carriage, and Kyojuro wonders if it was hiding with its blood demon art, before darting forward to behead it with his flame breathing. Sometime later, when the 4 are all asleep, Kyojuro dreams that he's back at his house with his father and brother. In reality, a young girl who's working for Enmu, lower rank 1, ties her wrist to his unconscious body with a special piece of rope that was made by the upper moon, allowing her to enter Kyojuro's dream. The girl locates his spiritual core, but as she goes to break it, she is suddenly lifted tightly by the neck by an invisible force. On the train, Kyojuro grabs her throat but remains unconscious, his survival instincts enabling his body to sense a threat and stop it. Tanjiro soon wakes up from the dream he was having and asks Nezuko to burn the rope connecting Kyojuro and the girl, removing the girl from the Hashira's dream. After the young Demon Slayer's confrontation with Enmu, Kyojuro too wakes up and tells Tanjiro that he, Zenitsu, and Nezuko will defend the 8 train cars from the demon, while Tanjiro and Inosuke go down to the front of the train to defeat him. After Tanjiro and Inosuke successfully defeated Enmu, Kyojuro applauds the young Demon Slayer for his recently acquired ability to use total concentration breathing all the time. and says that this is the first step to him becoming a Hashira. Just as Kyojuro starts to tell Tanjiro that he doesn't need to push himself any further because everyone's been saved, something jumps down just behind the two Demon Slayers with a great force, scattering the dust around them. The dust clears to reveal upper rank 3 Akaza, who immediately launches himself towards Tanjiro with the intention of killing him, but is stopped by Kyojuro. The Hashira notes that Akaza is attacking from a distance, punching into the air and moving at a fraction of a blink, and realizes that he'll have to get closer to him if he's to defeat him. Kyojuro suddenly appears in front of Akaza, who compliments his reaction speed as the Hashira attacks him with his flames. The upper rank praises his sword skills and wonders to Kyojuro how sad it'll be if they're lost early, to which the Hashira replies that it won't be sad because it's only natural for people to die. The two clash again, and Akaza manages to pierce through Kyojuro's chest with his hand, heavily wounding him. Akaza fled the scene as the sun was about to rise. Kyojuro looks over at Tanjiro and smiles, telling him to come over so they can have a final chat before he dies. Number 4. Sakonji Orokodaki. Sakonji Orokodaki is a retired member of the Demon Slayer Corps, having held the position of the previous Water Hashira. He is the main cultivator of the water breathing, having trained Gyo Tamioka, Tanjiro Kamado, Sabito, and Makomo. Having received a letter from Gyo Tamioka requesting that he train Tanjiro, which also explained the boy and his sister's circumstances, Sakonji set forth from his home to find the two. Upon finding them, he stops Tanjiro from killing a demon with his knife, stating that the boy will be unable to kill the creature with such a blunt weapon. Admonishing the youth for his question of how to properly defeat the beast, the elder watches as Tanjiro struggles to come up with a way to dispatch the creature. Sniffing the youth, Sakonji determines that he is no good, as he still has the scent of kindness, even when confronted by vile demons. Sakonji eventually agrees to test the boy to see if he is worthy of becoming a demon slayer, telling him to bring his sister and follow him. Sakonji then swiftly makes for his home, with Tanjiro struggling to keep his pace. After arriving at their destination, the elder tells the exhausted youth that the test begins now, instructing him to hike up the mountain. He travels with the boy partway up the mountain, telling him that he must make his way back to his home before dawn. He then vanishes into the heavy fog surrounding him. Sakonji explains his profession as a cultivator to Tanjiro, as well as how to join the Demon Slayer Corps. To prepare him for his trial, and to see if he is worthy of even being able to participate in it, Sakonji begins to train Tanjiro in the way of the sword. Finally, after a year has passed, the elder tells Tanjiro that he has nothing more to teach him, instructing him to prove himself by improving the basics he has been taught. He then leads the youth to a huge boulder, telling him that if he can cut it in half, he will be permitted to go to the final selection. When Tanjiro hesitates, overcome by doubt, Sakonji leaves without a word, his hand in the boy's training completed. Much later, after Tanjiro finally succeeds in slicing the boulder in half, Sakonji explains his reasons for not wanting Tanjiro to go to the final selection, complimenting the youth on his accomplishment. He then wraps the youth in a hug, urging him to come back alive from the final selection. After Nezuko's existence was discovered by the Demon Slayer Corps, Sakonji sends a letter to Kagaya Ubuyashiki. In it, he requested Tanjiro Kamado be forgiven for harboring a demon, and explains Nezuko's unique circumstances. Number 3. Sanemi Shinazugawa. Sanemi is the current Wind Hashira. According to Kokoshibo, Sanemi's physical abilities and techniques have reached their peak. Sanemi was the eldest son of 7 children, and lived with both of his parents. Their father was abusive, constantly lashing out at the children and their mother, until one day he was stabbed and killed by someone with a grudge against him. One day, Sanemi's mother failed to return home, so Sanemi left to search for her. At some point he found her and realized she had become a demon, but couldn't stop her from returning home and killing 5 of his siblings. Just before she could kill Genya, however, Sanemi tackles her through a window to the street below with a knife in hand. In the ensuing fight, she gave him the 2 large scars across his face and his Marichi blood, which disorients demons and makes them act intoxicated, gave him an opening to cut her down. When Genya runs into the street to find a doctor for his grievously injured siblings, he finds Sanemi with their mother laying dead at his feet. Panicking, not knowing that the monster that attacked them was their demonified mother, Genya screams and accuses Sanemi of murdering her. Sanemi, still in shock, becomes partially colorblind as their mother dissolves in the sunlight. After that, Sanemi abandoned Genya and began to hunt demons with his own suicidal devotion. Without knowledge of demon slayers or Nichiren swords, Sanemi instead armed himself with a multitude of weapons and fought demons at night, incapacitating and capturing them until daylight, then stringing them up to let the morning sun kill them. Despite his crude and reckless battle style, he managed to survive thanks to sheer luck and the unique aroma of his blood. While wandering the land hunting demons, he eventually met a legitimate demon slayer who helped him and introduced him to a proper trainer. The two of them teamed up to defeat the then lower rank 1 of the 12 Kazuki. However, his friend lost his life in the battle, and only Sanemi was promoted to the rank of Wind Hashira. Sanemi arrives at the Demon Slayer headquarters, where Tanjiro has been put on trial. Coming in holding Nezuko's box, he is finally introduced to the latter. Sanemi mocks Tanjiro for carrying a demon around with him and proceeds to draw his blade before stabbing the box. Enraged, Tanjiro charges at him and manages to headbutt him. However, before they could continue the fight, the leader of the Demon Slayers arrives to begin the trial. Sanemi's tone immediately changes as he greets Kagaya politely, introducing Tanjiro, who is being put on trial for traveling with a demon. To everyone's surprise, Kagaya explains that he has already accepted the Kamado siblings. Sanemi, along with the other Hashira, immediately refuse to accept the decision. He pulls out his blade and cuts his arm, causing his blood to drip. Sanemi proudly proclaims that he will prove their leader wrong and proceeds to pour his blood into Nezuko's box. Obanai reminds Sanemi that the demon won't come out in the sunlight, so he quickly moves into the building behind Kagaya, drawing his sword, prompting Tanjiro to attempt to come to his sister's aid. Sanemi stabs Nezuko's box multiple times, prompting her to leave it. Seeing the Hashira's wounded arm, she is transfixed by the sight of blood. Distracted from the temptation before her, Nezuko remembers her order not to hurt humans. With much effort, she turns away from a shocked Sanemi. During the Infinity Castle arc, while Demon Slayers battle against Kokushibo, Sanemi rescues his brother, Genya, by reflecting the upper rank's attack with his wind breathing. Kokushibo makes his distance and sees that the wind Hashira, Sanemi, has come in his presence. Sanemi agrees with the upper rank that he is indeed the wind Hashira, and that he'll be the wind Hashira that'll rip off his head. Sanemi tells Genya that he should have never joined the Demon Slayer Corps, and that he should have had a wife and children, and vowed to protect them. This makes Genya shed tears, as Sanemi expresses his true feeling towards him. As Kokushibo jumps into the air, Sanemi uses the wind breathing, first form, and Kokushibo draws his sword in order to block the attack. Later, Sanemi awakened his own mark that resembled a windmill with 2 dots on both sides on his right cheek. The mark dramatically increases his power and ability, as seen when Sanemi was still able to fight and contend with Kokushibo on the ground, despite being grievously injured and slashed across his abdomen. However, even though his physical endurance, strength, and tolerance have been dramatically increased, he couldn't land a significant hit on Kokushibo without assistance from Gyome and Wichiro. Number 2. Gyo Tamioka. Gyo is the current water Hashira. Gyo grew up alongside his older sister, Sutako Tamioka. When he was still a child, his sister sacrificed herself to protect him from the demons. Gyo was 13 years old when he met Sabito while training under Sakonji, and they became good friends due to their similar pasts and age. Together, they entered the final selection. Gyo was injured after a demon's attack and was saved by Sabito, who defeated nearly every demon on the mountain. However, after the week went by, it was revealed to Gyo that Sabito was the only one who died during their selection. As a result of this, Gyo started developing a doubt for the authenticity of his position after becoming the Water Hashira. While Tanjiro was struggling to fend off the attack from his demon-turned sister, Gyo attacks the latter from behind, only to fail as Tanjiro moves Nezuko out of the way. Recovering quickly, the swordsman asks the boy why he protected the demon, and he replies that the demon is his sister. Gyo possesses inhuman speed and reflexes, as shown when he took Nezuko away from Tanjiro's grasps at blinding speeds, which took him several seconds to register. Seeing that Nezuko was not like other demons, Gyo sheathes his sword, incapacitating the unusual demon with a barehanded blow to the neck. He would later send a letter to Sakonji, requesting for him to train Tanjiro and explaining the boy and his sister's circumstances. After receiving news of the many demon slayers perishing on Nadaguma Mountain, Kagaya orders Gyo to assist with the lower-ranked swordsman. Upon arriving, Gyo saves Inosuke from the father spider demon by cutting off its arm and easily beheading the demon with his water breathing. Gyo later intervenes in the battle between Tanjiro and lower rank 5, saving him for Rui's blood demon art. He praises Tanjiro for holding out so long and that he would take care of the rest. Rui, expressing great annoyance over the appearance of another demon slayer, attempts to use blood demon art on the Hashira. Gyo nullifies the attack with his own water breathing, cutting apart all the threads. While Rui is in shock over how easily the technique cut through his threads, Gyo swiftly beheads him. Shinobu suddenly appears and tries to attack Nezuko. Gyo asks if Tanjiro can move and tells him to run, which the boy does, while simultaneously thanking him and apologizing. During Infinity Castle arc, Gyo is seen with the other Hashira attacking Muzan. He eventually enters Nakime's Infinity Castle alongside Tanjiro. The two are soon ambushed by Akaza, with Gyo quickly sent flying away by Akaza's attack. Gyo soon returns angry and finally manifests a mark as he begins fighting Akaza, causing his speed to increase. Akaza immediately matches Gyo's new speed and eventually gains the upper hand, breaking Gyo's blade with a punch. As Akaza goes in for the final blow, his hand is cut off by Tanjiro mid-attack, saving Gyo. Gyo then re-enrages Akaza once more, but is eventually defeated by Akaza's final form. Gyo then watches as Akaza is beheaded by Tanjiro. After Akaza's beheaded body begins attacking Tanjiro, the injured Gyo defends Tanjiro, vowing to protect Tanjiro with his life as he continues to take damage. After Akaza's death, Gyo falls unconscious from fatigue alongside Tanjiro. They both later battle against Muzan, and upon defeating him, Gyo is one of the few Hashiras to survive. Number 1. Gyome Himejima. Gyome is the current Stone Hashira. He is stated by both Tanjiro and Inosuke to be the strongest demon slayer in the entire Demon Slayer Corps. This is further given credence by Kokushibo, who noted that Gyome's natural physical abilities have been trained to their absolute peak, and also stated that in the last 300 years, he has not encountered a warrior of Gyome's caliber. Before Gyomei was a demon slayer and Hashira, he lived with 9 other children who were orphans and raised them in a temple. This area was well known for demon attacks, so Gyomei had always burned wisteria incense to ward off any demons that would harm him and the children. One night, one of the 9 children disobeyed the temple rules and traveled beyond its borders. He is immediately accosted by a demon, and in order to save his own life, he tells the demon to eat the other children, including Gyomei. After night fell, the child invited the demon into the temple after putting out the wisteria incense. 4 children were immediately killed by the demon, and the remaining children insisted on escaping the temple, ignoring Gyomei's orders. His frail structure and blindness fueled the distrust that the children had in Gyomei's ability to protect them, which led them to abandon him and ultimately getting killed by the demon. In the end, only one child, the youngest, Seo, had listened and stayed behind in fear of the demon. Though it is unknown how the exchange went down, Gyomei had been cut across the forehead by the demon, but soon reversed the situation and began attacking the demon mercilessly. After realizing he had a frightening amount of power, he went on and beat the demon's head until the sun arose. Soon after, people came to the scene of the incident to help, but due to a misunderstanding, the villagers thought Gyomei killed the children and not the demon. He was later imprisoned and charged with the murder of the 7 children, but Kagaya intervened and released him before he would have been executed for his crimes. Later on, Gyomei became a demon slayer, and after only 2 months, the Stone Hashira. Due to being blind, Gyomei has compensated and altered his senses to adapt to his condition, effectively developing a superhuman sense of hearing. After the Ubuyashiki residence explodes, Gyomei is there to provide backup to Tamayo after she successfully injects Muzan with her medicine and cleaves the demon's head clean off. As Muzan regenerates his head and uses his blood demon art to attack Gyomei, the Stone Hashira counters with the stone breathing to protect himself. He is then transported inside the Infinity Castle along with the other demon slayers. During Hashira's fight against Upper Rank 1, Kokushibo uses his moon breathing on Sanemi. As the dust clears, Sanemi is nowhere to be seen, and Gyomei appears and says that the Demon Slayer Corps will never stop until all demons are eradicated from the world. Kokushibo noticed that Gyomei uses the sound of his chains rattling to tell the exact position the chain is in, and uses that to guide his axe and flail during combat. As seen in this conversation with Kokushibo regarding the Demon Slayer mark, Gyomei was able to accurately tell that he was lying by detecting the slight changes of the sound of his body, with him noting that he heard the latter shake after revealing his deception. He immediately tells Sanemi to stitch his stomach wound and to stay out of the fight until he finishes. After a long fight with the help of the Demon Slayers, Gyomei successfully defeats Kokushibo. With Genya completely gone, Sanemi screeches and shouts his name in mental agony, not wanting to believe that his brother is really gone. Gyomei interrupts Sanemi's grieving, telling him that the night isn't over and that Muzan still has to be defeated. Back at the battlefield with Tanjiro coming closer to death, the Hashira gets slashed and cut by Muzan's attacks. Mitsuri gets the worst of Muzan's barrage, and just as she was about to get impaled by one of Muzan's arm tentacles, a sudden impact destroys the tentacle, saving Mitsuri. It soon turns out to be Gyomei, coming to everyone's surprise, especially the Demon Lords. Later, Gyomei dies by the hands of Muzan, but the Demon Slayers manage to defeat Muzan once and for all.